Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I started out with the beginning to this video and something happened, so I just decided to just do it again and start this one out this way. We are going to come down to the table, and today I decided on a type of an Easter one because I have a couple more I'm going to do up until Easter. So this will be an Easter one with some teachings, because that's what all of mine are about, with some sort of teaching in it, some sort of encouraging word, and very easy, very beginner friendly type. I don't want to overwhelm anyone, and I just want to help you get started and help you to get into this watercolor journey that you want to embark on. So let's get to the table. See you in a second. Okay, so here we are at the table. Forgot to put the light on. There we go. Hopefully that doesn't distract anything, because I need the light myself to see, so hopefully that works. But I've got my brushes, I've got my little pad here. I've decided to I got this the other day at Michael's. I don't need anything real expensive to do these exercises, so I got one of these smaller pads. I have one. Why I can't find it is totally beyond me. But anyway, this wasn't expensive at all. It was in my budget, so I decided to get them for exercises. Perfect. So this, I've drawn out a little bunny and some eggs and so forth. This is going to be a very washy kind of, loose kind of painting, except for the bunny. So that means that the background and some of these areas of eggs and, flowers and so forth and grass are going to need a very light, washy, watery wash. So I'm going to show you how I do that. All right, so I'm going to use probably this big, large, this is an Artist Loft brush. It's 3/4 flat. And what I'm going to do, simply because all this area of grass and the sky needs to be a very watery wash. So yep, I'm going to just put water and only water all over my page, going carefully around the rabbit, because we don't want to get water into the rabbit, because I'm going to be doing the sky and the grass first, and I do not want the rabbit to, the colors of the rabbit to mix in with all the other colors. The sky and the grass will be a loose, faded in the background type of thing. The rabbit will stand out and the eggs will stand out. So that's why I have to go around all these things. And this paper is probably not going to, I forgot to make it into a block. Well, when I say that is because I take a pad like this and I make it into a block. I knew there was something I forgot to do before I started. Well, after this one, we will do that. But you just take some Mod Podge and on your finger, just go around the sides of the whole pad with the Mod Podge. Let it dry, leaving, of course, a little area somewhere to put something in, your finger or something. I usually use a small end of a brush. Works great. Get it in there and loosen up the paper. This works awesome, this Mod Podge idea. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start taking some colors. So I'm going to take a little blue, and I'm going to come over here. I'm going to wiggle my brush around. I don't want it to be super pigmented, so I'm going to, some areas I'm going to put more color in, and some areas I'm going to leave very, very faint, as you see here. And I'm dropping this water in and squiggling it around, taking some off as I kind of go around the bunny and so forth. Softening areas of lines that I, but I want some areas with some strong pigment, so I want to leave some areas with the pigment that looks real strong, like right there. I want that to be there and there. And then I'm coming down. Hope my allergies won't be ridiculous today. So far so good, so let's just hope it stays that way. Okay, so we've got this side, and I'm going to come over here and kind of drag a little bit. I'm going to get some yellow, and I'm just going to draw. I got to be careful with regular yellow and regular blue, because as we know, in school it will turn what? You tell me. Right, green. And it kind of started to for a minute. I almost didn't catch it. Okay, so I just wanted a little yellow in that little spot, but unless you have like, oh, I think it's ochre, yellow ochre, and I forget what else won't actually turn it green, but you have to be careful of those sorts of things. So I'm going to take some, well, what do you call it? Payne's gray, and I added it to some of my blue. Sorry, this paper's going to ruffle a little because I didn't do what I was supposed to do in the first place before I sat down. All right, well, anyway, we'll all live. We'll all be fine. So this area is a little darker here. I'm going to go into some mauve, it's called, which is a real pretty color, kind of a purplish color. And around here, some of this paper is starting to dry a little, so I got to kind of move along a little bit here. So I'm just going to put it in and you watch. Going carefully around the bunny. As you can see, I'm going to mix in some different colors in the darker areas, the more shaded areas of my painting. This is all a very loose background. That's what it's called, loose. It's my first wash on this background. There'll be more than one. But this is all the grassy areas. Excuse me. Go around here, back into some dark spots. We want dark and light. That's what it's all about, getting the dark against the light. All right. And then we're going to take the lighter green. And because I want to depict some grasses, I want a little different green than I've got, and I want to get a little more defined. Not a lot, just a little more, like this. A little darker than what I wanted. It's going to dry lighter, but I didn't want it quite that dark at first, but that's okay. We will deal with it. So you see, can you see how this would depict actual spears of grass, right? And I want to bring these, the background is pretty much all dry now. Doesn't usually take too long to dry these. Now I'm going to use this flat brush to make a few indications of grasses, like the thicker grasses, right? So, and as you can see, even what I put in is starting to blend, and that's okay, because that's what I want, okay? If I didn't want that, I'd be in trouble, because, you know, if I didn't want the blends, it's too late. It's already starting to blend in. But you can, at any time, change whatever you're going to do to the mistake you've made. Like Bob Ross always said, and it always comes into play, they're happy accidents. They turn into happy accidents, and if they're not, you make them happy accidents, meaning that you turn it into something else. Make it work for you, which I love that. I'm all about that kind of thing. We have a little bit of dark there, a little bit. So as you can see, what we've got going on here is we're going to make some darker ones over the lighter ones because we want some depth, and that's how that works. Something dries, so you come over and add something on top of it, which is going to, is layering. I'm also layering. That's what that would mean. So I think we've got, that's good. And I'm going to just let that all kind of mix. A little more yellow in some places. Like here and there, like the sun is, you know. And I wanted a little bit of, well, what would be like the yellowy ochre dirt, so to speak. Kind of hard to explain. Anyway, I think that's good. Oh, one other place that I need a more defined is right here. I want this one to be, I love to mix on my palette. I mean, I love to just, these particular colors, whatever that, of these I'm talking about. Oh, that sounded really confusing. I'm sorry. What I was trying to say was, as I make colors on my palette, as I use this color, that color, whatever color it is, I'm seeing, you know, I'm feeling, I'm wanting in the painting. I take it out, I put it on a part of the palette, I mix it up. After a while, I get quite a few different mixes on the palette, excuse me. And I use those for blends, for areas, excuse me, areas of the painting that I want to make this or that, or add this or that in, like I'm doing right now. I've got mixtures going on, and what I want right now is a little darker green in a specific place. So I'm going to go to my darker green, and in a few areas here, just kind of spreading it around. It's no big science of any kind. I mean, I have an idea of what I'm showing you, but it's, you know, very easy. Okay, and we're going to let that dry. A couple of these are going to be stems that have a flower on them. And as you can see, I just did that there. If you can zoom in when you're looking at this video to see how I did this or that, it's sometimes easier than my trying to just talk you through it. A lot of times the zooming in helps so much to see that. So I suggest you do that and slow it down so you can see how that particular move was, that particular stroke. Now I'm going to take a smaller one because what I want to do here, well, it's fairly wet still and kind of wet. I'm going to get some yellowish with some Indian yellow. And I'm making these flowers here that really are not formed in any way, shape, or form. They're just, I'm actually going to whisk some of that around like that for grass. So it's a bit of Indian yellow into regular yellow. So I've got that like that, and then I'll put one there, I think, and there. Whoops, I covered up my flower over here. Now there you go right there. That's a happy accident. Because it's all right that that happened. I actually had, unbeknownst to telling you, I had another thought that I was going to do, that I decided to do. So that all is fine. And it happens all the time once you get painting. So you'll discover that. I've got some darker greens here that I'm trying to depict some leaves on top of the lighter ones. So we're going to have distance, you know, layers, distance, depth, all that creates that. let a layer dry, add another layer on top of it, let that layer dry, and so on and so on and so on. All right, so I think what I'm going to do now is start heading over to the, oh my goodness, I was going to say bear. I'm going to head over, oh boy, I'm going to head over to the rabbit. There we go. And I'm putting a few colors together here. I am not going to wet the paper because I want this layer to be much more pronounced, much more pigmented, pronounced, bolder than what I've already got on. Because remember, I said at the beginning, the bunny is what's going to stick out, and the eggs. So we're going to carefully with this little, and this bottom layer has to be dry to do that. Remember that. You can't, if it wasn't, I mean, it would be all blending in. I don't want it to do that, so, and I have to be careful. Some of the areas below me are still wet, so unless I want to put my hand right into it, I got my finger balancing my hand here so I don't end up in what I just painted. We don't want that, and I want that a little less dark, so I pulled some color out. And I'm defining his ear on this side and this side. Some lines are going to be not as potent, not as dark, as strong as other parts because of what I'm depicting. And I'm depicting that the left side is a bit darker, is the shadow side, so that's another thing. Now I'm trying as I'm going as well to leave the white spots. Remember, we've talked about, if you've watched any of my other videos, which I hope you do, because there's a lot of teachings in those things, for the beginner especially, mainly for the beginner. That's really what most of all my stuff is, because I had to start from somewhere, and I had to watch, and I had to learn, and until I did, there was not much I could do except just keep learning and keep trying, and that's kind of what we're all talking about here. So we're going to come down and wispy, kind of wispy with my brush, because I want this to look like fur. So wispy, wispy, except under here. And then come around to his little face and, you know, all his little fur here. I'm doing that with the side of my brush. Now you have to remember as well, we are painting a painting here. It is not a picture. It's not going to look exactly the same at all as your reference photo, so to speak, if you have one. It's a painting, so you want it to look like a painting. You don't want it to look like a photograph. I mean, that's not what we're doing here. We're painting. Painting is its own beautiful thing. All right, so we're gonna, I'm putting I've got water, very little on my brush, and I'm swishing around where I've already painted, and I want some darker areas, and I want some lighter areas. So you see how that's building up? You put a wash down, and then you let it dry a bit, then you put another wash down. This one's going to have some real cute, this color is burnt sienna, I believe. And around different areas, leaving some white, because there is some white there that we're leaving for his parts of his little face. And you put the lighter wash down first, okay, before you're going to be adding other washes on top of it. Now, I don't want lines here. I want just a wash. So I'm getting what looks like a hard line. So I'm taking just the wet brush, going around, And I need to make this a little bit darker here. Remember what I said, that watercolor dries light. So what you put down will look dark. In a very short time, it's going to be light, very, very light. I think the ratio is something like 30%. That's quite a lot. So you have to kind of keep that in mind when you're doing the painting, right? So we want to keep some little white areas of the paper here, which are hard once you get the color on it. But there we go. We pulled some color out for that little spot. And around his eyes is white. So I'm trying to keep that happening. And then we're going to add, see how that moves when it's wet on wet, as we've talked about before. The wet on wet part of watercolor, which is, you know, like the main part of watercolor, is how paint moves with water, right? I mean, that's kind of like what watercolor is all about. And then I'm going to take some darker color here. And we got to give him some dark areas because under his chin, there isn't going to be any light. So we need to depict that under his chin is darker. And there's some areas on the top here on his face that are going to be darker. Don't want it too dark there, but we want something. I'm going to pull this down like this and then kind of trying to depict something here. I got to make it a little rounder. There we go. All right, and then I'm going to add some of this color up into here, which I didn't get before. And darken this a little bit here. I'm going to come up here and put a little bit in, because what we're going to have up here, I mean for his ears anyway, in the middle, and bringing in some of those colors from a wet brush. You can go right up next to what you've already painted, and it will pull it out into your paper a little bit. So we want that a little bit, because right in the center we're going to put some nice pink, watered down. Don't want it too thick, although I do want it to end up being nice and pink. So kind of, you know, semi-thick, strong, not too much water at first, because that's going to dry a lot lighter. I'm going to change my brush now, even though I could use this one, but it doesn't have the tip that I really like. So I need to grab one of my very small ones for his eyes. Let's see, I want one. I have so many different brushes, and I like to use, for these types of things, something that holds a really good tip, and this one does. This one is actually Transin. I have a few Transin brushes, and I love these brushes. They just hold on to their tips very nicely, because we want a very dark color, and I've got a few colors I've mixed here. Dab it off on the paper towel, and with the tip of this, and you're probably going to have to zoom in. Oops. I got to get a little more water on there. I need to make one of his eyes here. A little more water on the brush, because we want it to move. And leave a white spot. You need to have the white spot there. I'm being very careful here. I don't want to mix into the paint around him too much, because it's still a little damp. You can, to make these things go faster. Oh, that came out so cute. That wasn't there's a happy accident right there. That's not exactly the type of eye I was going for, but that is the type of eye that came out, and I love it, and I'm leaving it that way. Oh, I just love it when that kind of thing happens. It's one of those happy accident moments, see? Cute. All right. Just the way those two came out. Perfect. Love it. And then I'm going to take this same one. We're going to do his nose right here. These little things on their nose, little rabbit mouth and nose areas. Oh, cute. Just plain cute. I love doing these rabbit ones. Speaking of rabbits, I remember one time sitting out with my daughter and granddaughter out in their yard. Excuse me, I just took a drink. And across the yard, over across the yard, flies out these little rabbits, this family of rabbits, little baby rabbits. Oh, it was so funny. I mean, those things go so fast. It's incredible. I was like, oh my God, did you see that? So it was real cute anyway. They're fast little animals. So we want to do some depicting here with this same of kind of like lines. Bring it down. It's like this little peak up there. Keeping some white. We want the white little areas of light here. All right, so, and then I always like to give their nose, even though some of them don't show it. I like the nose to be a bit pink. Whoops, I just grabbed some of the, I'm gonna have to be very careful here because the black is still wet. So with this very, very nice tip of this brush, I put in his nose. Take out a little bit for a highlight. And again, the best thing to do when you want highlights is to try to remember, and believe me, I know what I'm asking because I don't know how long it took me to remember to put, to save the white of the paper. It's just a really hard thing at first. So when you do it, do not beat yourself up on it at all. Give yourself the time to learn all the techniques that you want to learn. So you forget, you just try to remember the next time and the next time and the next time and how many ever times it takes. Watercolor is such a learning experience. There's no getting around that. You cannot get around that in any other way. You have to do it. You have to practice it, learn some concepts. That saying, practice makes perfect, well, in watercolor, it definitely has a play there. I'm trying to take some out there for a little area that I got paint on that I didn't want to. And bring this out here a little bit again. Wanted to get his side of his face a little more bulgy, so to speak. So we're just gonna, a little too much there. Some of these colors can be very, very strong. And that was one of them. Okay, it's like I keep choosing the wrong one, but that's all right. It's not really a big deal. Although I put two colors together that are not, they look the same on the palette, but they're not the same. So, all right, so that's okay. We will just continue on here. Right by this side of his face. It's going to be a little darker because he's shadowed a little. And you see how I'm just wisping on the sides there? I'm just wisping and I'm grabbing the two different colors I've got going on and all kinds of things happening here. Well, I guess I'm going to have to move those two colors that I keep screwing up when I grab them. I didn't realize when I did that. I changed my palette. I wanted something. I keep trying to find the right palette. I never can actually find it. But the one I had I liked, but it just didn't seem to be enough room for what I like to do. So anyway, I got another one. Very inexpensive. I don't spend tons of money on palettes. Just trying to find something I really like working with. Okay, so we're just gonna like that. And we're gonna dab out some color here. That means I'm going in the water, taking off that color, coming in, dabbing it to pull it out on this side. Yeah, like that. And he's not too far from being done here. I did it again. Oh my goodness. Okay. There we go. That's the color I'm looking for. I'm actually going to come up here and take some, and that you can do. Take some from some areas that I have already put down. And I'm just going to dot this to indicate fur. Right? Works. So he really is almost finished. I don't want to spend a lot of time on him. But you can tell it's a rabbit, and there he is. I gotta make this a little bit darker right here and a little bit here. There we are. Make sure I leave a white spot there. And with my acrylic white, it's another thing I didn't mention, is that I also keep some acrylic white around, and yellow and Indian yellow, I think it is, so that if I get going and I notice that I want some white in some other spots, like I'm doing here, I can add it in after. No harm, no foul, it can be done. So actually, I think that we're just about, and for the eyes, that's another awesome place to do that. That just really brought the eyes of the bunny out there much more like I wanted it. Very cute. Very, very cute. A little darker of the color here. I like this burnt sienna. All right, this is wet. We cannot, and we should not, and I'm not gonna, except right here where it's a little drier. I haven't been in that spot much. I am going to add one of the flowers that are going to be in the painting. This is dry, so we're going to go there. And that's still dry, so again, I'm going to grab my acrylic. Sometimes the acrylic will show up more, a little bit better for you. And I like to mix it around. All right, now we're left with the eggs, right? And I don't want this to be two-part. I want it to be just one part. So over here where it's dry, I'm going to wet my brush. I'm going to keep the same brush. You can use whatever brush you want to use. I've got it in my hand. I don't want to take time to find a new one. So I'm wetting the paper, and I'm going to make this a blue. So I'm going into my blue. I do have water in my paints because I wet them. Want this nice, pretty, I think it's phthalo blue. I literally think that is the most beautiful color. And do you see how it is not spreading much at all outside of this egg? That's because everything around this egg has dried. Otherwise, you got it. You guessed it. It would just spread out. The water would take it all into the rest. We don't want that. I wanted that nice poignant color right there. And I'm going to go into some mauve because I just love that color when I mix it in with things. It's kind of like a purplish, pinkish. And see, I'm adding it, and what a pretty, oh, what a pretty color that makes on there. Okay, all right. And we left a white spot, and we're going to come in and take a little color out here. Soften up some of these edges a little. Oh, nice, nice, nice. Okay, this one, everything's dry around it, so we'll wet this one. And my video's getting long, so the other eggs I will do myself. Now, if you saw that drip of water just fall down there, it's because I had some water up here that I didn't get off, and it fell down, but it didn't matter. It's dry enough where it doesn't matter. So I'm going to take now an Indian yellow. I love that color, and we're going to just kind of drop it on there and leave it sit for a second to give it a darker hue. Nice. That's really pretty. Love that color. And wash your brush off really good when you use an acrylic color with watercolors, brushes, and so forth. You can do it. It's no problem at all. Just make sure you wash your brush off. And I took a little darker color, and I just want to outline some areas with this very tip of my brush. Putting some other color, some darker color in there on the edges, around, leaving what's coming from this side, right, to be lighter. And I think, folks, other than taking out a little bit here and there for highlights, if it's dry, you can still come in and sort of, but once it gets real dry, you aren't going to be able to do that. So everything's still a little bit wet, so we can still kind of go in and pull a little bit out. You can do that also with a paper towel or something like that. So I think, see, we just all that. Oh, you know what? We forgot. We forgot his little feet here. My goodness, how could I forget that? So we just got to go in here, put his little. Oh, let's see, we need the color, darker color. It's got a little purple in it. Purple is really great for adding to colors to darken them up. I do that a lot with greens, reds, all kinds of things. And also right under here, under this little area here, it's kind of under his little belly area right here, is some darker color. Let's pull out some for highlight. There we go. Cute, just too cute. We had a little bit of some greens happening, and all I'm doing is putting some on my brush, very wet, and some not so wet with color, and I'm just dabbing them in. It's another layer, okay, is what that's called. I'm going to take an orange, and right here, I'm going to dab this in here to indicate flowers. Take a little tiny bit of that and dab it right in the center so that you know there's a flower there. And a little bit on here. And you want a little bit of greenery so that flower doesn't look like it's, you know, just hanging in the air there. There. And maybe even drag a few lines. And that's done. I'm calling that one done. That's cute. Another absolutely adorable cute. Now you can go back in, and I will offline, and I will color in my other two eggs. But it's still a bit wet, so I don't want to, although it really wouldn't matter at this point, but my video's gone way too long. I don't want it to go any longer. So I hope you've enjoyed this, folks. I hope you do some of your own paintings, especially these bunny ones, these rabbit ones, and I'd love to see them. When you do them, I'd love you to put it down in the comments so I can see them. If you have any questions or whatever, just put them in there. There's an email address. You can use that. But most of all, I hope that you take this and you watch it and then you try it for yourself. Even if it's just an egg, draw an egg. Even if it's just the little wisps of leaves or grass. You don't have to draw a whole painting at first. Nobody does. Especially when you first begin. You're too unsure of yourself at first. But get a paintbrush, get some paper, get some paints, and just go for something. Okay? I hope you have a really good day and see you in the next video. Bye for now.